Strength doesn't always come with loud voices or bold moves. Sometimes it shows up quietly. In the woman who doesn't respond to the provocation. In the man who walks away from chaos without explaining himself. In the soul that refuses to be guilt-tripped, shamed, or emotionally blackmailed into submission. That's real strength. And that kind of strength, it terrifies manipulators, because manipulators rely on your insecurity. They thrive on your doubt. They look for the cracks in your confidence so they can crawl through and plant seeds of fear, confusion, and control. But when you start to see through the game, when you begin to question their motives instead of blaming yourself, that's when the mask slips and the fear begins, not yours. You see, manipulators don't know how to handle someone they can't guilt into staying. They don't know what to do when you stop reacting, when you no longer seek their approval or validation. They're used to pulling strings and watching people dance. But when you cut the strings, when you stop explaining, apologizing, or defending your choices, they panic. Not because you hurt them, but because they lost access to your energy. They'll say you've changed, that you're being cold or disrespectful. But what's really happening is that you've simply stopped allowing their behavior to shape your reality. You're no longer available for their tactics. You're no longer interested in conversations that circle back to making everything your fault. You've outgrown the version of yourself that used to bend just to keep peace. And that, more than anything, disturbs them. Because once they can't control you, they can't define you. Once they can't define you, they can't manipulate how others see you. And when they can't manipulate how others see you, they begin to lose their grip, not just on you, but on the illusion of power they built around you. That illusion, it depended entirely on you not knowing your worth. But when someone realizes their manipulation isn't working, when the lies, the gaslighting, the twisting of facts no longer have power over you, they don't always fight louder. Sometimes they go quiet. And not the kind of quiet that brings peace. No, this is the kind of silence that's meant to punish you, meant to confuse you, meant to break you in places they can no longer reach with words. This silence is strategic, calculated. It isn't about space. It isn't about healing. It's about control. When they stop calling, when they stop responding, when they withdraw without explanation, it's not just absence, it's a weapon. They want you to sit in that emptiness and start second-guessing everything. They want you to overthink every word you said, every boundary you set, every moment you stood firm in your power. They want the silence to scream so loud that you forget why you distance yourself in the first place. Yeah. And here's what makes it so powerful. It taps into one of the deepest fears in the human experience: abandonment. See, a lie can be challenged, a false story can be corrected, but silence? Silence makes you the author of your own anxiety. They don't even have to accuse you of anything. They just disappear, and suddenly your mind becomes a battlefield. You start to fill in the blanks. You question your strength. You question your value. You wonder if maybe you were too much, too cold, too blunt, too proud. You start to grieve something that never gave you peace in the first place. We believe as a group, as part processor, but too nourishing. But this is exactly what they want. Manipulators know that silence can be more devastating than words. It's passive punishment. It allows them to keep control without looking like the villain. They disappear and play the victim. They withdraw and let you chase. They shut down emotionally and watch you beg for closeness, not because they miss you, but because they want to make sure you still need them. What they fear most is your indifference. So they go quiet, hoping you'll get loud, that you'll panic, that you'll spiral. They want you to come back, not with confidence, but with desperation. They want you to apologize just to end the silence. They want you to feel responsible for a disconnection they created. Because if you feel like you caused it, they win the war without ever throwing a punch. When a manipulator can no longer get to you, they'll start reaching for those around you. It's a desperate act, one rooted not in truth, but in fear, pride, and wounded ego. Because losing direct access to your mind, your emotions, your attention, and your energy feels like a personal failure to them. And manipulators don't take failure well. So when they realize they can't bend you anymore, they shift their focus. They stop trying to control you and start working on the people around you. Not because you're wrong, but because they can't stand the fact that you walked away with your dignity intact. They begin planting seeds of doubt in the ears of those who once admired you, trusted you, loved you. Quiet conversations laced with false concern. I don't know what's going on with her anymore. He's changed so much lately. I just hope they're okay. But that concern isn't genuine. It's bait. It's manipulation disguised as compassion. They know they can't destroy your truth, so they start distorting your image. And the worst part, sometimes it works. Suddenly people look at you differently. They hesitate before they speak. They pull back without explanation. The warmth is gone, replaced by a suspicion that was never earned. You feel the shift, not just in your relationship with the manipulator, but in the entire atmosphere around you. And it's isolating because you can't fight rumors with facts. You can't chase down every whisper. You can't sit down every person in your life and make them see what's really going on. And they know that. They exploit the fact that most people don't dig deeper, that many would rather believe a convincing lie than take the time to understand a complicated truth. They exploit your silence, your restraint, your dignity. Because while you're choosing peace over pettiness, they're out there rewriting history to serve their ego. You left the game, but they're still playing. And the audience they recruit, they're just collateral in a war you didn't even sign up for. What makes this tactic so damaging is that it's subtle. It's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's just a change in tone, a certain look, a lack of support you used to count on. People you once trusted start to withdraw, not because you did something wrong, but because someone else made it seem like you did. And that's the manipulator's goal. If they can't control your mind, they'll try to control your reputation. If they can't change your behavior, they'll try to influence how others respond to you. They want to discredit you without ever having to confront the strength that caused them to lose power in the first place. When manipulators lose control over your emotions, your loyalty, or your presence, they don't look inward. They don't reflect. They don't ask themselves where they went wrong. No, that would require accountability, something they're allergic to. Instead, they reach for the oldest trick in the manipulator's book. They flip the narrative. They become the wounded one, the misunderstood one, the victim. And you're suddenly the villain in a story you didn't write, a story that doesn't even resemble the truth. It's not just storytelling, it's strategy. By positioning themselves as the one who's been hurt or abandoned, they tap into people's instinct to defend the underdog. They paint their suffering in vivid colors while erasing the part where they pushed you, gaslit you, or emotionally drained you. They leave out the nights you cried in silence, the moments you gave them grace they didn't deserve, the boundaries you tried to set gently before you finally had to walk away. They erase all that and present a version of events that makes them look powerless and you look heartless. And they do it so well, with trembling voices, with social media posts full of cryptic quotes, with vague stories about betrayal, disloyalty, or fake people. They never name you outright, but everyone around them knows exactly who they're talking about. And suddenly you're in damage control, trying to explain yourself without looking defensive, trying to protect your peace without appearing cold. Because now you're being judged not for what you did, but for what someone else said you did. This reversal is intentional. It shifts the spotlight away from their behavior and onto your reaction. It makes people forget that you didn't walk away for no reason. You walked away because you were pushed, ignored, manipulated, disrespected. But by the time the manipulator is done spinning the story, your strength looks like cruelty. Your silence looks like guilt. Your boundaries look like punishment. They've rebranded their loss as your betrayal. This is how they operate. They don't seek resolution. They seek sympathy. They don't want to fix the relationship. They want to preserve their image. Because to them, how the world sees them matters more than how they treated you. They don't cry because they're hurting. They cry because they're being held accountable. And the tears, they're not for healing, they're for manipulation. Because if they can't be seen as the hero, they'll settle for being seen as the victim, as long as you're cast as the villain. For far too long, we've been conditioned to believe that peace comes at the cost of our voice, that we must keep quiet, hold back our truth, and swallow our words to avoid rocking the boat or unsettling someone else's fragile sense of comfort. But let's be clear about something. You don't owe anyone your silence, not for their comfort, not for their convenience, and certainly not for their peace of mind. Silence is not a tool you should wield just to keep someone else from facing discomfort. It is not your job to protect others from the natural consequences of their actions or to shelter them from the truth of your experience. Too often we find ourselves biting our tongues, dismissing our feelings, or staying quiet out of fear that speaking up will make someone else uncomfortable. But when we do that, we're giving up our power. We're giving up the right to express ourselves fully, to stand in our truth, and to demand the respect we deserve. Think about it. How many times have you held back your opinion, your feelings, or your boundaries because you didn't want to upset someone? How many times have you allowed someone else's discomfort to silence you, even though your voice was necessary? The thing is, real relationships, whether with family, friends, or colleagues, are built on mutual respect and honesty. And that honesty requires you to speak up when something matters. It requires you to express your truth, even if it makes others squirm. Because keeping quiet just to maintain the status quo is not peace. It's avoidance. It's suppression. It's allowing your needs and your voice to be smothered in favor of someone else's fragile emotional state. You are not responsible for how others feel about your truth. When you speak for you. And if that makes others uncomfortable, that's not on you. That's on them. They have the right to their own feelings, but you have the right to your own voice. And if your silence is what's keeping someone else from facing the consequences of their actions, then maybe that silence is doing more harm than good. In fact, silence for the sake of others' comfort often ends up hurting you more than it hurts them. It robs you of your self-respect. It chips away at your sense of authenticity. It leaves you carrying an emotional burden that was never meant to be yours to bear. When you stay silent to keep others happy, you're silently agreeing that your feelings, your voice, and your truth don't matter as much as theirs. And that's not just unfair, it's unsustainable. So ask yourself, what price are you paying for keeping quiet? What piece of your soul is being stifled in the name of someone else's peace? And at what cost are you allowing others to walk all over your boundaries, your values, and your needs? You don't owe anyone your silence. You owe it to yourself to speak up when it matters, to protect your peace by being honest about your feelings, to let go of the fear of upsetting someone else when your truth is on the line, because real peace isn't about keeping others comfortable at your expense. It's about being honest and standing firm in who you are, whether that makes others uncomfortable or not. He says, in the end, the people who seek to manipulate, control, or silence you are not powerful because of the tricks they play, but because we allow them to define our worth, our actions, and our emotions. They rely on your insecurities, your silence, and your need for validation. But as you step into your own power, as you recognize your worth and refuse to be manipulated, their tactics lose their grip. You no longer owe anyone your silence just to protect their comfort. You do not have to shrink to fit into someone else's narrative. If they can't manipulate you, they'll try other methods to keep you small. Lying, playing the victim, turning others against you. But the truth is, when you know your value, none of that can touch you. Your silence is not for their convenience. It's for your peace. Your boundaries are not negotiable to keep others comfortable. They are necessary to keep yourself whole. Remember this, the only control they truly have over you is the control you give them. And when you stop giving them that power, when you reclaim your voice, your boundaries, and your truth, you take back the power in every relationship you walk into. You own your narrative, and no one can take that from you. So keep walking in your truth unapologetically. Speak when necessary, stay silent when it's for your own peace, and let the manipulative tactics bounce off you, knowing that the person you are is more than enough.